Hello, this is David Bryant, and welcome to this episode taken from Chapter 2 of The Hour Has Come, How a Christ Awakening Wins the Battle for the Soul of America. As Americans, in the words of the U.S. Constitution, we're to pursue a more perfect union. And these days, there's a raft of factions facing off on various issues in the public square that rocks our nation with contentious showdowns that have become the recurring theme in American life, whether person to person, online, in mass rallies, through formal debates, or even sometimes by violence. But tragically, in this downward spiral, too often, one segment comes to view other segments as the enemy. Some even regarding those who disagree with them or with a particular position as immediate threats to their personal security, as well as to the continued flourishing of America itself. Now, University of Virginia professor Mark Edmondson has concluded that, and these are his words, hate is virtually omnipresent in our current culture. Now, that sentence bears significant reflection. Hatred for the other, in many forms, is a major hallmark, that he is saying, of the current state of the soul of our union. This condition is certainly anything but healthy. William A. Galston, who's the senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, says it all in the title of his acclaimed new book, Anger, Fear, and Domination: Dark Passions and the Power of Political Speech. Now, in his book, he argues that the emotions of fear, humiliation, anger, resentment, hatred, and the drive to dominate the other are the chief menaces to our democracy at this very hour. His warning is this, that in hard or threatening times, it is these dark passions, as he calls them, that most often persuades people to take action, moving from voting all the way over to violence. Over time, rancor and rage dehumanize a culture and undermine its cohesion as a democratic society. Think about that. And in addition, history shows us, and human psychology confirms, that when dark passions like these that we're talking about penetrate the soul, whether of one person or a whole nation, they are found to be quite difficult, listen to this, to reverse, to root out. So the challenge can be almost insurmountable when it comes to restoring what David Brooks calls the bright passions, such as hope and aspiration and caring and love for enemies. And it's just an aside for now, these are the very qualities of character that do prevail wherever Jesus is given full sway to redeem as Lord of all. Just hold on to that insight for later. Again, so much of this conflict is reminiscent of the early 19th century, with its hostile social climate surrounding slavery and the abolitionist movement. This eventually inflamed, as you know, rank malice between the North and the South, and that was followed by increasing loathing of one another and intense acrimonious discord that produced the hardening of the convictions that led to the dismemberment of the Union, of the very soul of our people, and climaxing in the Great Civil War, which cost 800,000 lives. And today, as in the 1800s, Americans find themselves divided by bitter conflict with one another, verbally and otherwise, primarily over the reshaping of the future of the nation. Now, I want to invite you to scroll through this partial list as it goes before you on the screen, listing current issues impinging on and even undermining the health of our national soul. I'm sure you've seen many of this before. The list could go on. But the point is clear. In a sense, the United States is currently hosting multiple civil wars. Yeah, fires are burning everywhere. and they're burning at the very soul of our union. The animus bubbling up among us is not triggered by a few central issues like abolitionism or states' rights, which were so divisive in the early 19th century. Instead, our discord springs from a simmering stew filled with existential controversies. Consequently, the land of the free is identified even before the eyes of the world more by chaos and clarity, more by fear than hope, more by stress than joy, more by division than collaboration. But no matter what camp they belong to, all appear to agree on this much, that whatever way our struggles take us, they will shape us and the future of our union for generations to come. And almost all of us would agree that America is in need, at its core, of a reset, of a moral, relational, conceptual, and even spiritual revolution. Of course, even in the face of these challenges, it isn't all bad news. Other diagnostics of our national condition reveal some positive, healthy offshoots that we also need to celebrate, that give us reason to believe that all's not lost, that God may not be finished with us yet. No one's captured this better than Jim Vanderhei, who is the co-founder of two major news organizations, Politico and Axios. As a CEO of 450 employees, he freely admits, and these are his words, "I am an unapologetic beneficiary of democracy, capitalism, and America's entrepreneurial spirit." But in an open letter that he sent to college students recently, Vanderhei refuses to diminish the fact that we see things changing all around us at an alarming speed, resulting in what he calls, quote, big, urgent challenges. But his research and that of others, he reports to college students, suggests, and these are his words, that we've been duped into thinking most people are nuttier, meaner, more polarized than they actually are. Most people, he points out, aren't glued to CNN or Fox News or X or Axios. Here's the bottom line of Vanderhei's exhortation to Gen Zers based on his years as a cultural analyst. He writes, "America rocks. Crime is near a 50-year low. Murders low and dropping by double digits 3 years in a row. War, military deaths are at an historic low. Unemployment is holding near historic lows. Poverty is half the rate it was in 1959. He goes on, "It sounds cheesy and trite even to write it, but we live in extraordinary times, in extraordinary nation, full of extraordinary people." Yes, there are countless things we could do better, he ends, and lots of areas of legit concern. But I beg you to understand the enormous, indisputable advantages of this country, especially compared to other nations. Yes, America has big problems, he says, but it always has, so help fix them. America rocks today, Jim says. Boy, I agree with that, for sure, in positive ways. But at the same time, it also rocks in very ominous ways. However, the future of America rocks even more. The future rocks when you take into account the remarkable transforming impact held out to us in terms of what an American Christ awakening could have, what it's all about. And that's what this series is designed to help us understand. With increased clarity on what miraculous changes await us in the wings of this kind of a new American revolution, eventually we're going to land on the perfect strategy for making these very significant advances right where you live. so that America can become more of what God has meant us to be through Jesus Christ. And the hour for this new revolution, for sure, it has come.